Steve Kaempf with the People Not Titles podcast, and I am so glad to have with me today the owners of Angelina and Herrick, the partners. What is there another title that we have for you guys? Grand Poobahs?
Yeah, that works. That works. We'll take
Mike
it.
Angelina and Mark Herrick. And these guys are world class in what they do, and we're glad to have them. We're happy to talk about their journey, and we're going to find out why so many real estate agents choose them to handle the legal end of their real estate transactions. So let's get into it, guys. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Been wanting to have you guys on for a long time. Who's the senior statesman here in terms of
Just because of age.
Yeah. All right.
I hate to
Age and
say
experience.
it. Yeah.
So Mike,
Mark has a little experience too, though.
yes, absolutely. So Mike, let's talk a little bit about what was your inspiration for getting into the law business. Did you kind of stumble into it, or was it intentional?
Total stumble.
Okay.
There really was no, burning desire to be an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, my father was in sales, and I thought that was, was a neat thing. I always was into sports, so I liked competition,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw sales as kind of a way to get into something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of business competition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
contact
so,
sport.
Yeah, so I get through going through college, and I get towards the end, and I wasn't as prepared as I probably should have been to move on and get into a career. So I asked my father if I could go and get an MBA. I thought that'd be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a business degree, and my dad was like, "You're kind of doubling up. Why don't you go to law school?" So that's how I ended up going.
Well, that's
to law
pretty good
school.
advice.
Yeah, and so he said, you have the more options you have in life, the better your opportunities are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, you already have the business degree, get a law degree, and then you can do what you want. And I ended up right out of law school starting my own firm, and and then what ended up happening is.
And when you started your own firm, were you doing real estate at the time? But was there even an agency program at the time?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, this was 100 years
Yeah.
ago.
Right.
But anyway, no. So there wasn't, and I had been clerking at a personal injury firm in Chicago, and the owner of that firm told another clerk, that was there with me, that we would succeed on the cases that he didn't want. And so we're like, all right, that'll work out. So my first partner and I started out in a little 10 by 10 interior office with our desks facing in opposite directions, and maybe worked an hour or two a day because we had no business.
Mm-hmm. So all of your business, so you kind of started your firm with the promise that you're going to get some of the fallout from the business that this firm didn't want to do.
Correct.
Okay.
And so we didn't get
That's
many
great.
cases yet. So
Yeah.
it was one of those things where when I started out, I did everything because I had to.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting my first real estate deal, and
What do we do now?
It was a good friend of mine,
Okay.
and so I go and do the closing, and it took me 2 hours to get through all the documents, and and the other attorney kept looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And I'm looking at him like,
I got this.
This is important. This is, what do you mean? And when the closing ended, we were outside the conference room, and he's like, closing should take about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Like, you can't go through everything. So anyway, that's how it all started out. Over time, we had attorneys, we did everything, all different aspects, but then over time it started to kind of just narrow down to real estate.
When was that? What year?
Well, when did you come
Yeah, so
and
hold on.
become
Yeah, what-
2010s.
Mark was a clerk.
When
Okay.
became,
I'll let you tell that
straight
story.
Yeah. So Mark, what motivated you to get started in the law profession?
So I have an interesting, from very young
Wow.
age. I knew if you asked my mom, she would say ever since I was 9, I said I was going to be a lawyer.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I was when I was really young, at like 5, I was adopted by my dad. So we had to go to the down in Cook County, the courthouse, and I stood in front of a judge. He actually lifted us up on this bench for the adoption, and I thought it was cool. The courtroom, the judge, the robes, the everything about it. I thought it was just cool, and I was enamored by it.
What a story!
I thought I'd be a big trial lawyer.
Okay,
Going
people
to court.
arguing, making
Yeah,
dramatic
that was my
statements.
So I literally, ever since I was 9, I went to college. My mom always said he's going to be a lawyer. That's all I ever said. And that's what I wanted to do. And I thought I wanted to go. I was really passionate about like kids adoptions, and so this thing called guardian ad litems, where you represent kids in divorce matters and family law. That was my whole thing until I clerked for family law firms all through law school and realized how much I hated it.
Why?
It's a terrible business. Terrible business.
A lot of tough stories.
Yeah, well, and people are just divorce attorneys. They have bad reputations.
Someone's got to do it right.
For a reason, because clients are two people that once loved each other, despise each other more than life itself, and want to do everything they can to get back at each other. And the rigor they put the attorneys through is it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's hard for you to not be emotionally connected to all of what you're doing every day, right?
So I knew right away that was not for me, because I'm an emotional person, and I'm too emotional, and I connect too much with people, and so I realized very quickly that I was not made for that kind of work.
Wow, good for you, man. That's really self-aware when you're early, and so then did you decide right away then real estate law?
No, the last thing I wanted to do was real estate law.
Okay.
Because my mom was a realtor.
Oh,
so
okay.
I grew up with a realtor.
Yeah, you saw the hustle.
And I hated everything about it. I hated growing up having to be muzzled in the car all the time because she was on the phone negotiate. Now I do it to my kids. I muzzle my kids in the car all the time.
Sit back and put this on.
My kids just know. I mean, they know.
Daddy's on the
talking,
phone.
Quiet. You
Yeah.
know. But no, I hated, Christmas Eve, driving to church, and we're all sitting there quietly while she's negotiating contracts, and it just
Or she has to run out and do a showing or whatever,
and
right?
every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday, she was out. We were home just on our own devices, whatever, because she was busy doing it. So I had no desire to go into real estate at all. But then when I figured out in law school that I didn't want to do family law, she said, well, you should talk to my real estate attorney, Mike Angelina.
Oh,
and
the recruiter.
And I said, well, he had to hire me because she was one of his
I
top
didn't have
agents.
a choice. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know that I really
And
need
he's still
anybody.
one of your top clients, right?
Yeah. So
I still have her as a realtor
That's
to this
fantastic.
day. So so I started with Mike in '99.
and he sat
before
in
I
my
passed
office.
the bar, and I sat in his office. Literally, he had his desk, and I sat at a table in his office for 9 months, and literally just absorbed everything he
You
did.
learn from the feet of the master.
Literally.
Well, but he had being the child of a realtor. I mean, it was like instinct almost.
Yeah.
Like he took to it.
Right. He
really
was like
well.
Doogie Howser. He wanted to be, an
But-
attorney
but-
when he was 9.
Yeah, really. But but even then, Mark wanted to be a litigator more.
Well, so Mike's partner at the time did all litigation. So when I started working with him, I said, I'm like, I will do this, but I really want to work with your partner, not you. I said, I'll do some real estate. Remember,
He didn't.
I said, I'll do a little bit of it, but I really want to do the litigation side. And so I was all in on that part of it, and I sat with him, helping him.
But I needed
and
them.
he needed it.
Yeah, so he had to.
But him and his partner eventually split up, and I actually went with his partner, not him, because I didn't want to do real estate. I mean,
Was that a tough conversation?
Yes and no. I mean, because we were
We
friends.
stayed friends.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
And it wasn't
that you could have
personal.
been butthurt about it, and
Yeah.
Well, but
it wasn't personal at all.
okay, it wasn't personal.
Yeah,
he knew
no, and at the time, I was doing a lot of real estate, and I had in one of our
And when was this? What year was that?
Oh my gosh, that would have been
around
2002, 2003,
I think it was around I
maybe even earlier.
think it was 2001
Yeah.
because
like 01.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
probably right.
Yeah, and so the other associate attorney at the time was was a litigator. So we also kind of talked about it, that even though Mark wanted to continue doing litigation, Mark had developed a relationship with a bunch of agents. And, I mean, I couldn't say you can't go with Mark. And so I think it just made sense for the two firms to have a litigator and a real estate attorney, in each instance. And but
So you kind of an amicable split. You understood this guy wanted to go. Mark's going to be the litigator of their package.
It was a tough conversation.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was
I
tough.
felt really bad.
I didn't
but-
want to go, but I told him I had to, and I wanted to kind of spread my own wings a little bit and do something different. And he knew that real estate was not my passion at the time, and then I did go with his partner, former partner, and I did work a ton of litigation, and I basically
kind of ran the office.
I ran his office, and I did a lot of work. And
were you guys staying in touch during that time?
Always.
Well, so I want to press pause here. What's fascinating about this is that there's a lot of agents out there that are just getting started, right? And you guys are great with new agents. But because you can relate, right?
Oh, we like
you
working
were
with new
you
agents,
were the
yeah.
person that got started. You were the guy that whether they're on a team learning from another agent or whether they're learning from their managing broker or whatever, you sat in their shoes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that real estate attorneys are entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? That they had to wake up, like you said. I had 2 deals to do. I had 8 hours in a day. I had to figure out what am I going to do,
Yeah.
and hustle up business and contact people or whatever it is, right?
Well, and I think like you're like circling back, that really appealed to me.
Yeah, because that kind of scratched the sales itch that you were
Right,
talking about
exactly.
before you were going to get in to be a lawyer.
Right, and I think what I had started to say before was that we all are in sales all the time, no matter what you do. Like you're selling, like people, you want them to work with you, work with
Like
your
and
business.
trust you.
Yeah, and so for me, what was fun is like I've been running a business all this time, and that is, I mean, I love real estate. I mean, I've just gotten used to it. It's nice to know things, but.
Yeah.
What makes it more satisfying, though, is having a business and going through the ups and downs and trying to adapt and figure things out and
Build and grow. And,
yeah. Because and the thing that was fun for me too, and I thought from a salesperson perspective, although your day is similar, it's always different. Like you're meeting with different people, you're cultivating relationships, you're doing all those things. So it's right there, and Mark and I are both very competitive people, as you know, on the golf course.
Yep.
We're not talking about that.
We're quite a team.
We're not talking about that.
But anyway, it's fun to, like if we work to, how many deals has he brought in? How many? And so
great.
we like compete with each other, for fun.
And what's great about what I'm hearing is that that an agent is an entrepreneur in their business, but when it comes to you, it now is part of your business. You treat it just as serious as they do. That's how your business runs, and so you're taking ownership as much as they are with the transaction once it's passed on to you.
No, that's a good point, and I think that's why it kind of works too, because like you said, we've started. I mean, I had nothing.
Yeah.
I was again living in my parents' house.
Yep.
And like the first few years, I don't think I even made any money, but I wasn't going to give up, and just kept going, and so from an agent's perspective, we've worked with a lot of agents for their whole career, and we've seen them go through what we went through, and and again, you recognize what it takes for them to succeed as well,
and you know how hard it is to get business in the door and how quickly you can lose it, right?
Great point. So we want to just help them out as much as possible because we're important to their team.
Yeah.
So
all right, so let's talk about how you guys got what is it? This it's like the Notebook when they got back together and
when
love.
the band got back together again. It was hard times. Hard times will bring people back together.
Yes.
So
because you're gonna.
Sorry to interrupt, and then I'll stop. I do this all the time.
He does.
But Mark always finishes the.
Right.
So at the time, we had built our practice I had 2 partners and we had 4 associate attorneys, and we were doing everything. I, at that point, was pretty much just doing real estate, and then some estate planning because it dovetailed well. And then everything started to go back. And Mark actually was sharing space in a building that my partners and I owned at the time.
Yeah.
And this is when everything started to go bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
So we're getting close to 08 now?
Yeah, it's
the big
I
short.
left,
It's coming.
Yeah.
left.
I was there.
I
It's
left
getting
his
bad.
former partner
Okay.
to go out on my own, and
As a litigator.
No, so what I did was I ended up building a real estate practice with his former partner, and I just realized, okay, I built quite a book of business, and I wasn't really getting recognized or compensated for what I was providing, in my opinion. And when I had asked for a little more equity in that, he said no, basically, and kind of even dared me like, you wouldn't be able to do it on your own. And I said, oh, that's the worst thing to say to me.
Yeah.
Don't test me or dare me, because I'll show you.
Yes.
So what I did was, a friend of mine from law school who was a experienced litigator, insurance defense work, etc. Going off of the model I had seen from when Mike hired me, a real estate guy, a litigation guy, I went partnered with him and we started our own practice. And Mike had just purchased a building for their law firm, and they had a whole open basement. So I'm like, and we wanted to move into a building, so we moved into the basement of his and paid rent to start.
But
our
you
firm.
had your firm for a little while before.
For a little
that, too.
while, yeah, and then
What a great example of not burning a bridge.
Well, and
You
while
know what
this
I
is
mean?
going
'Cause
on,
you could have been
believe in that.
totally
Yeah.
pissed off at him.
we both
but
believe
you
in that
didn't, or
wholeheartedly.
both of you
Yeah.
could have been like, oh, this or oh that, but you just stayed connected, both of you.
We
So
did,
that's
and I
great.
eventually moved out of his basement.
Yeah.
And into my own, literally moved out of my basement.
it was a basement.
Went to our own building, and
So Mark, what had
Had our
you?
practice.
What? So originally you said I wasn't so hot on real estate, but it seems like for you something flipped. Why?
It was where I was getting the most business. Number one, I became very good at it, and my personality was such that people just wanted to keep using me and working with me. And then after 10 years in courtrooms, the luster was gone. I found that all I did was sit in a courtroom for hours on end waiting for my cases to be called, to just continue it to another date. Like, it felt like a colossal waste of time.
And now it's almost impossible to be a litigator. I mean, if someone tells you I'm a litigator and a real estate attorney,
You can't
plan
do it.
on not being able to get a hold of them,
Well,
right?
the litigators spend an incredible amount of time in court and just waiting
for
their
something.
cases.
Yeah.
And
Nothing.
So, and when they're in court, they don't have their phones in there with them. They're not accessible. They can't do closings. It's really hard to do both. It's really hard to do both. So,
How to do both
absolutely,
well, right?
100%. So we went into this business. I had this partner. Then 07, 08, everything, all of a sudden, the
Things
business
really dried up.
tanked.
Yeah.
And I have
my-
no partners anymore, and all
Right.
the associates are gone.
Right. My problem was I took my eye off the litigation ball. And so when the real estate dried up, I realized we didn't really have a litigation practice. There wasn't a lot of money or income coming in on that side either. So I
you were
had
carrying
to, Yeah. I had to break up that partnership. And at that point, I was just kind of defeated. And I said, all right, I'm a lawyer. I'm gonna go get some corporate job. I started applying at like Nicor, all these companies, McDonald's. I was like, I could just be an in-house, attorney, all these different places, make a set amount of money, not have to rely on bringing in business, all that. And he took me golfing. We were at Hawthorne, your golf club, and we were golfing. And I told him, this is what I'm doing. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, no, this is what I'm doing. And he said, no, you're too good at this. You're not doing that.
Wow.
And I said, I could be good at it, but if there's no business, I can't survive and feed my newborn child, new one coming. I have to do this. And he wouldn't let me.
Wow.
He made me come back
Wow.
with him.
Yeah.
And that's a scary move for you, Mike, because you were probably like, "What am I going to do here?"
Exactly.
In this period
He
of time,
had no
right?
business bringing me in.
Yeah. Well, and then
Well, that's a great point, by the way. Hold that thought, Mike. Is that in every entrepreneur's journey, there's a time where going backwards, or maybe it wouldn't be going backwards, but running to the safe haven of a job, guaranteed pay,
Right.
benefits, all this. It looks like nice, cozy, comfy
Absolutely.
blanket and pillow.
I was-
That's the safe play.
no, and it is, but I knew him for years, and that
Yeah.
he's not.
That's not how he's wired. That's
No.
not how he's built. He
I
won't
know.
be happy there.
No,
Maybe for a
that's what
couple
I told
years.
him. Right. I'm like, you'll never have the success that you can and should have. Like he would have been wasted doing that.
Yeah. Well, it was scary because I had 2 kids under 2
Yeah.
and no income.
Well,
Everything was dried up. It was scary.
Yeah, and so going back to like running a business.
Yeah.
So when all that started happening, I'm like, I have everything I want. You know what I mean? Like I've got a great family, I've got a great practice, everything's going great. I'm not going to let anybody go. This is gonna, we'll get through this, even though the writing was kind of,
survive.
yeah, and this was a little before, Mark and I, and so then I, and because of that, I went like 6 months without getting paid because I wanted to keep everybody in place. I, cared about everyone in the firm and all that. But then it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, I have a family. I
Right.
have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I have to, and
You tried to last as long as you could,
Right.
watching out for everyone
Right,
as
so-
an entrepreneur and that, caring for your people.
yeah, and then it's okay, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
So then, the writing was on the wall. I had to let people go and then really start to try to focus on things. And that's where I really started to do more and more of just totally focusing on real estate.
Mike, I was there at that time, and how'd you stay positive? I mean, because I know it's like those are incredibly tough decisions. You have to
Well-
break the news to people and let them go and not take a paycheck and come home to tell your wife why they're getting one and you're not and all this. How did you stay positive?
Okay, well, what helped me stay positive is because I become content, right? So when you're content, you're not going to work as hard and try as hard because you have the things that you want, right?
Yes.
So it actually energized me, and
Wow.
it's good to be hungry again.
Yeah, you saw the
right?
challenge.
So,
You saw
I
the time to get it
challenge,
going
and it's
again.
like,
Let's go.
Yeah, and all right, and how do we figure this out? Like what do I do? Like you get rid of the things that you don't need anymore, and you start to focus, and it's like, all right, and you strategize. How do you grow? Mark and I get together, and now we're trying to figure out how we do things together. And then ironically, in this horrible market, we're talking, and we're like, these short sales, like what's
Well,
going on
the
with
way-
short sales?
The way that happened, if you recall, so I was sitting in an office in his office doing virtually nothing, literally, just trying to get a real estate deal here or there. And my mom, the realtor, calls me up. She goes, I have this bizarre deal. And house in Deerfield. She's like, it's new construction basically, but it's not done. And my client, the builder, he can't do anymore. He's out of money. And so the problem is he owes the bank like $900,000. I can't sell this thing for more than $7. There's no way I can possibly do this. And I said to her, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I said, well, I'm not doing anything.
Let me
Literally,
work
I
on
have
it.
nothing
Yeah,
to do.
right.
So I was like, I wonder if we just went to the bank and said, hey, this is the most we can sell this for. He needs to get rid of this property. Will you take less money?
Wow. Are
Literally.
you guys telling me like Al Gore invented the internet, that you guys
We did
invented
not
the
invent
short-
short sales, but this is how we fell into it. We
But
didn't
so-
invent it.
Wow.
This is how we fell.
Wow.
I didn't
This
know
is
what
fantastic, guys.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I just knew that I had.
You
to
had some time to
somehow
work on it,
talk
right?
To the
Yeah.
bank about taking less money.
And so now litigation skills comes into effect,
Right.
right? You're arguing for things.
Exactly.
You're, I mean,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So I go to the bank and I start having this conversation, and then they start saying to me, well, what's it worth? And I had my mom do CMAs on it and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, here's everything, and here's all his invoices, what he's paid, this is what he's put into, I was just proving the value to the bank, basically. And then it went on for a couple months. It took a little while, but the buyer was incredibly patient. The seller was like, yeah, this is great. And then eventually the bank is like, okay, we'll take X dollars. And then they were like, oh, and what are all the fees? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, well, I've put so much time into this. I'm like, I'm not charging a $570 our flat standard fee.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, my fee is like $4,000 for all this months of work. They paid it. And so I got that.
So
I was
now
like,
we're like,
Mike's sitting there going, whoa.
so I go to Mike, I closed it, and I said, you're not going to believe what I just made on this real estate transaction. All I did was, it took time. I had to negotiate. And Mike goes, I have this realtor who was just talking to me about a conference he went to in Maryland about these things called short sales.
Yeah.
And I go,
And I couldn't go. He
right.
scheduled the flight, and it was like the next day.
Yeah, and you couldn't go. And he goes, it's called short sales. And he was going on and on. I go, well, that sounds like what I just did. And then he goes to the realtor, he goes, give me your booklet from that conference. And him and I sat with this booklet, and we were like, and next thing you know,
we created our own.
We looked at each other and we said, we could be the short sale guys.
Yeah.
And
you remember.
Yes.
We went and did the talks.
Yes.
That is how we turned our business that was dead in a slow time. We became the short sale guys, and we went to offices literally
everywhere
over the entire Chicagoland area talking about short sales. We brought in a paralegal. We developed processes for short sales, and eventually I, along with this paralegal, took over all short sales, and we started working all the regular.
What a great
deals.
story of reinventing yourself in the middle of where people were crying
we
and hiding
fell
under their
into
bed and running for the hills.
Right.
You guys were like, let's stay in this and let's make something happen.
Yeah, and then we went to the agents that we already worked with, and
probably helped them survive as well by telling them, hey, there's this short sale stuff. Stay in the game.
Market yourself for that.
Yeah.
Well, and there were a lot of attorneys who didn't want to do them, and so we would work with their realtors. We call them their realtors, and those agents started to like how we did things, and we got a lot of new agents out of it too.
Wow.
So it went from a really bad situation to it catapulted us.
Yeah, that's great.
It completely catapulted us. That's how we picked up business all over the place.
Yeah, and then you were like never going back to litigation, and now I'm 100%.
Even
You guys have been
time.
doing real estate ever since.
100%. Since 2007, I've done nothing but real estate.
Okay, so now here we're today, Angelina and Herrick. You guys are really premier in Chicagoland. Why do people pick you today? People could say, "Oh, they're too busy. They got they need But you guys make like the onesie twosie agent still feel special. How do you do it?
I think it's a combination of number one. I think it's our processes in place with our offices. Our processes are they're client and realtor centered in terms of communication and how we reach out to people and we keep people informed and I think. Really, our biggest selling point is that Mike and I, as well as our other attorneys, are involved and engaged in every transaction. It is not our paralegals doing the work, which is where you find a lot of real estate attorneys' offices.
You're always getting an attorney to handle your deal.
Absolutely.
The attorney's answering the phone, attorney's getting I know that paralegals have their role in the transaction. They're valuable, and you have awesome paralegals. So
but we stand out because we are accessible, we are available, we are constantly engaged in the transaction, and then I would like to say I think we have pretty darn good personalities too that people like.
Personality plus.
Right?
Well,
wow. Yeah, sure.
I think we do. I think people like talking to us. They like working with us.
Well,
I think they feel good about working with us at closings.
The thing is, it's like I enjoy new people all the time. It was really hard for us when we couldn't go to closings. Because it's going to a closing. It's like that's the fun part. Like now we get to. You go through the documents, but like when you're waiting for funding and things, you have an opportunity to build a relationship with the person that you've been talking with, and that's what I always try to do. And Mark's the same way. Like if I'm talking to a client and they're saying that they're going to a sporting event or something, I make sure, like, hey, how was the game, or whatever it is, to give the little, and I, and I do care. You know what I mean? Like I care and I don't care, but I care. It's like it's interesting to me. Yeah. And you want to just build that like relationship with everybody that you come in contact with, and that's I think how you do it. You like. And it's genuine. I mean, people don't think that when they hung up with me, like, the guy didn't really care. He asked a question, but I could hear him, typing. He was actually listening to me.
So unlike the divorce where everything ends in destruction and ruin, these transactions all end with the seller and the buyer getting a new home and moving in, and the seller going, hey, I'm moving on to my next thing, and I got the money I wanted, or what. And even for short sales, I'm out from underneath this thing. Holy mackerel, thank you so much. You saved my life type stuff. It's really important.
It's genuinely a happy experience.
Yeah, it's a happy experience.
There's things about
tough stuff that happens.
There's issues that happen that make people feel sour.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I think what I enjoy the most is that it is a happy experience. I love finishing a closing and just saying congratulations and seeing them smile, and everybody wants to jump up and take pictures with the signs, and they always try to get me in their pictures, and I always say no. I'm like, my agents all know that Mark doesn't like
Mark
pictures.
Doesn't like it.
I said,
yeah.
I always tell him, I go, you don't want me in your picture. Years from now, when
why
you
ruin the
that
picture? Yeah, who's this guy?
Who's this guy? You don't want me in the picture. And agents laugh at me all the time, but I like that. It's a happy experience, and
it's a celebration.
Most of the time, everybody walks away happy, and the best part about that is usually they remember you for being part of that happy experience, so they want to come back to you or refer their friends and their family, and that is a really positive part of what we do.
Well, and I think just hearing your guys' story from the hustle, the sale, the identification with the sales effort, the way that you pivot, all those things happen in a real estate transaction. You know what I mean?
All the time.
You have to be creative. You have to go this way or that way. You have to figure out how to get it done. You guys have figured that out in your life, and so that's what you're bringing to every transaction.
Yeah, and the thing too with closings, there are so many times where we're talking and people ask a question, and they'll and they think it's a this or that answer, black or white, and it's like I have to ask you probably 5 questions to get some more information from you to advise you, the way you should, and that's one of the things that's really fun about it as well. Is you get to the point where you've done enough transactions, and it's not just time. Like we've been, I'll be talking with an attorney, and he or she'll say, "Well, I've been doing this for 20 years," and it's like, okay, I've probably done more transactions in 2 years than you've done in 20 years. It's like I know how this works.
Yeah, I had closings this morning, this afternoon, and 3 in between.
Yeah, and so it gives you the it's fun to feel like you can advise people well, because of the experiences and everything that you've like. We pretty much know how things are going to play out all the time. And the other thing that's kind of fun about this, and we when we talk with realtors, new ones, we tell them your clients will react how you guide them and cause them to react. So if we're calm and the agent's calm, and we work with our agents all the time, because especially if we're having any issues, we'll contact the realtor and be like, hey, like I'm going to say this. Have you already had this conversation with them? So we want to make sure that we're united. Yeah. And then we guide them together. If I could kill every deal if I wanted to. Yeah. By getting my client riled up.
Right. Grandstanding and getting emotional and
and it's like there's no reason to do that. At the end of the day, if we're advising them, the best thing for them is to close. Not to save $500. Right. And we walk them down those roads to tell them these are the consequences. I know you want to win. Right. But that's not winning.
That's not winning.
You're really gonna lose.
Let's define the win.
I approach every deal the same way, and that is, and I always tell people, I'm like, I always believe that you have a seller who wants to sell and a buyer who wants to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to the buyer, you obviously like this house. You've looked at how many houses, you negotiated, you made so many offers. This is the one you chose to go to contract on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose sight of that fact over a couple of $100. Like,
Yes.
people are very quick to lose
That
sight.
fly was stuck in the windowsill,
Right,
and I just
right.
freaked me out. It's like, whoa.
So, like Mike said, we could kill
we don't know
deals
how
all
it got
day.
there.
I
Right.
could say to my buyer, "Oh, you're right. This is terrible. Let's
Yeah,
kill
how
it.
dare them.
You know, let's kill this
Yeah.
deal." But I always fall back to, "But you wanted this house,
Yeah.
and so we need to work to make that happen."
Right.
And so I always say we keep deals together because I believe that's what everybody wants.
Amen.
In the transaction, I believe they didn't
Yeah,
come
including
to
the
us.
buyer and the seller,
Correct.
which
They
is that's the
didn't
most important
come to
two
us
people.
to kill the deal.
Yeah.
Now there's times when you see something, you're like, oh,
I'd
said
stay away from
you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that
yeah.
the movie
Yeah.
Money Pit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Right.
like, let's
Yeah.
run away. This is
Right.
looking pretty Money Pit-ish.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that happens.
Right.
But for the most part, I always tell people my job is to remain calm
Mm-hmm.
and give you advice and help you to achieve what you came here for, which was to buy this house.
Awesome.
And I think that's one of the major things that differentiates us. And we preach it to everyone who's ever come to work for us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a personality and a demeanor that you have to approach everybody with in terms of like openness and friendly, and I'm giving you advice and I'm trying to help you to achieve a goal.
Mhm.
And you got to come across a certain way, like you're genuine. Like
Yeah.
I said, you're genuine about that. If you're not, people can smell it.
Yeah, that's great. So let's look at the firm now. What is it? So you have 2 offices, right? Or 3? You have 3
Three.
offices. Yeah. You have
Yeah.
Barrington, you have Naperville, and you have Rolling Meadows.
Right.
Right.
And what does the staff look like? Like how many other associates do you have?
Well, this year, we no longer have any associates.
Okay.
So, not because we let them go.
Right, right.
Because they've all reached a point where, they are, invested. They've shown that they're looking for business and everything. They've been with us for a while, and they've all been made partners.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. So, we have, there's Mark and I, and then we have four other attorneys.
4 other attorneys.
Yeah.
4 other
We
attorney
just-
partners.
We just
And-
brought in a litigation.
You brought and so I think that's a real important distinction, that these are not just some flunkies that you're slagging over business to. These are people that have been with you a while. They've been vetted. They're transaction tested, and so if they don't get Mark or Mike, but they get someone else, they're getting a partner of the firm that's kind of understands the brand and what is happening there and what your guys' expectations are for their interactions.
Correct. And
all that.
they've done thousands
They've been trained
of
and
closings,
tested, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They understand how to talk to people, and they understand the law and the contract and the nuances and thinking outside the box, and they're invested in us and we're invested in them. 100%.
Is this what you guys did? This kind of happen, or did you guys envision this 5 years ago? Is this what you were working towards?
Well, so what ends up happening, and I think, you always want to be careful with how you say things, because then some people, the way to be
Misconstrue it?
Well,
or
no,
whatever?
not misconstrue, but we can create competition by giving secrets.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But-
Yeah. So no.
but-
Yeah. Don't share anything you don't want to share.
But I think
I guess was this in your mind, or it just kind of happened?
I think it was
and not like there's some big secret, but
Right, yeah.
what I'm getting at, and this is no secret, and people can figure this out there on their own, but you can't be afraid to add, because you're like, well, there's only so much money in a transaction, and you know what, I'm making enough money by myself, and I only need a paralegal and me to survive, or
I'm
whatever.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah, and not that I'm unhappy with those types of things, but you have to look at it and say, if I can't provide service, I'm going to lose business.
Right.
So how do you? There's only there's just Mark and there's just me. I can't do everything.
Right.
So we have to find people who fit the mold and understand how everything works,
Yeah.
so that they can work with us. So yeah, you may take a little step back when you hire someone, but if you continue to go out and try to get business and you do a good job and your service is maintained, well, you can continue to grow. And you just have to get to, and that's what we've always had that mentality.
Yeah.
And did we envision that this was going to happen? I think we knew it would, but we weren't afraid to
Right.
let it evolve.
Well, and for us, part of a design, for sure, the two people who have become partners recently are much younger than us. By design. In 10, 15, 20 years, we don't want to do we would like to retire and enjoy
Yeah.
our families or grandkids and all that.
Yeah.
And to be able to have in place successors, so to speak, 10 years, 15, whatever
it is.
But people who could kind of carry on something.
So that's
There is
vision right there.
There is a dream of, building something and having it carry on.
Sure.
Of course, I think anybody
Yeah.
who truly builds something and looks at it with pride would say, I would love to see this carry on. If my son who will be 12 decides in 10 years, hey, I want to be a real estate lawyer, I'd be like, fantastic, I have something. Like I don't think that's going to
That's great,
happen.
but that's a vision.
You want to have something that you can kind of have carry on and a legacy, so to speak, I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm proud
Yeah.
of what we've accomplished and achieved and built.
Yeah.
It's come from a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears,
And investment. You guys, when you guys build and grow, there's one, like you said, there's the hoarder mentality of, I'm just going to keep even though I can't provide the same service I'd like,
Right.
I'm going to keep this all underneath me and we're going to blah, blah. But you guys are saying, no, if I share a little bit, and maybe make that sacrifice and take a step back economically, it allows me to expand my capacity now.
Right.
Which I think, it's kind of like Walter Payton saying, oh, here's my secret. I ran up that hill 1,000 times. It's like, well, you can tell everyone the secret, but who's going to run up the hill,
Right.
Yeah,
You have
right.
to do it. Absolutely.
And that just takes a unique, stretch of time that you guys have had, and experience
Right.
and all this, just your journey.
Yeah, we've there's been a lot of
Yeah.
of ups and downs.
It's been a great road.
Yeah, and we have 5 paralegals
Okay.
as well, and again, one of the things that and you've heard me say this in the past. So we have Mark always. You can roll your eyes for the camera. So I always will say you have doctors and you have nurses, right? So. And in many respects, the nurses know as much as the doctors do. Like our paralegals can answer probably any question that a client or a realtor has. But, going through this, being a child of a realtor, you
Right.
see how important everything is to everybody. And that's why I like the analogy. And you could say, when you're waiting for your doctor to call you to talk about test results or whatever, and the nurse calls,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're not
Unless
satisfied.
she says everything's
It's
fine.
fine. Yeah, you're like, that's
Yeah,
great, right?
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, that's a great. But
Yeah.
but you're still wondering and you're
Yeah.
worried and whatever. And
Yeah.
so when we start the transaction, we always make sure that there are 2 attorneys on every file and 1 paralegal. And so that when there's a doctor thing that needs to be taken care of, it's the lawyer is doing it. The paralegal is handling the processing of the file. And they're as important as we are, because they're taking care of everything, but they also have a lot of contact with the realtors and the clients as well. And so, it's a team. It really is, and that's how we approach everything. And I've always said since day one, nobody in this firm should treat anybody
100%. Yeah.
differently than they see me treat someone in the firm. And and I treat everybody as an equal.
Yeah.
And that's the way it has to work. You have to feel like you're on a team and you're working towards that goal. So that's how we do it.
That's awesome. And plus, you have the secret weapon. Your dad
Yeah.
is still
Yes.
a part of your
He's
business.
the
He
best.
shows up every day,
Every day.
Every day.
coat and tie.
Coat and tie.
It's
Every
amazing,
day.
So from the advice it must make his heart glad to see you guys doing so well.
Yeah, it was.
proud.
It's when times were tough, it was what do you mean you're going on a vacation? Like, you don't have any money. It's like, those were tough
that's
times.
good. Yeah, that's
so
good.
it's great having him there because
what a gift.
and he's and everyone who's worked with us over time, everybody's loved him. So it is great. It is really good having him around every day.
That's great. And Mark, you're a coach as well, right? Softball coach.
Yep.
And I know that you've been thrown. Have you been thrown out of any other games since the one that you were thrown?
Just the one. One time in 10 years.
Yes.
Nice.
I'm just
On
kidding.
my
That's
birthday.
a unique story you have to ask me about. On your birthday, you
On
got
my
thrown out. I
birthday.
forgot that.
Yeah, but
was
we
fun.
both, I coached, and that's the other thing is having your own business. It's great because it's a part of you. I mean, it's your life. It's part of it's your family. It's everything. But it also gives you the flexibility to do things that are important to you.
Yeah.
So
Be
even
there
though
for
we
family,
work
special
our
events.
tails off,
Yeah.
I made sure that I coached, each of my children, and I was involved as much
That's
as
awesome.
I could. Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
look, I have to leave, and I'm going to. And,
But it becomes a part of us, and then people understand. Like I can't tell you how often realtors in the summer I coach on the weekends, and usually on Fridays.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of Fridays where I take off early, and I will text my agents. They're texting me, and I'll be like, in a softball game, call you when I'm done, and all of them, oh yeah, good luck. Like
That's great.
It's very they all understand. They know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I still get back to everybody on the weekend. Everything.
And that dispels the myth that you have to forget about your family while you're building a
you
business.
do sacrifice things.
You sacrifice. There's no doubt about it. There's
But-
the phone calls and this and that, and it's your own business, and you can't just go. I clocked out at 5. I
Right.
get that, but you guys have still kept kind of the big rocks in the jar.
Absolutely.
Family time. Being there for your kids' events, even being more involved than most.
Well,
And
and
we go on vacations, and I think
People
I can
understand
speak-
it, right?
I think I can speak for both of us that our families are incredibly forgiving.
I understand.
They know that every single day of vacation, you're going to be walking around at the zoo, wherever you are, and they're going to be like, Dad's on the phone because we're emailing, texting, or taking an hour or two out of every day of the vacation to sit in the hotel, and while they're down at the pool answering emails or making calls. And I think our families are extremely forgiving of that because they understand that's why we're able to go on vacation.
No doubt.
We do this.
There's a respect for your business.
And
what you put
I
into
think
it.
at times they give us a hard time too. Like,
Sure.
my recent vacation in December, one thing my family said, they're like, this time, do you think you could, we were going to Disney.
Yeah.
Could we just go, not be on the phone? And I said, you know what? Yeah, we could do that. And I actually, it was a slower time, so I actually could do it. But
And part of that is having staff and people that have your back
Right.
end, the paralegals and other partners and people, as opposed to being a one-trick pony where you're on vacation and no one's there to help
and I
or
was
respond.
gone, and I knew he was
Yeah,
there.
Mike was covering.
And so if between the other partners, I knew if there was any issue at all, he was going to be on it, and so I just didn't have to worry, which was nice.
And when Mike took a beautiful summer vacation in
He
Spain.
decided to go away for a long time in Spain.
it's so much fun here. I'm going to stay here for a month.
It was rather selfish of him, but
Right.
And I mean, that was scary.
Yeah.
it was scary.
And I tried to do some work while I was there, but there was a 7-hour difference, and
Yeah.
I was just stepping on toes. Like Peter,
right.
one of our partners, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he handled it, right?
Handled everything, but he would be like, "Hey, I already handled that. Like,
Yeah, we're good.
Maybe you
Stay
should
out of it."
just
That's great.
I have it."
Yeah.
And him and I
it
had
was
multiple
good.
conversations while he was trapped in
Yeah.
Spain, and I just kept telling him, "We're fine."
Yeah.
He's like, "I feel so bad." I go, "We're fine."
Yeah, you have a great. We're wrapping up, but you guys have a great new generation of attorneys that really, this kind of. You've dispelled the myth of anyone younger than me is worthless. That kind of. You guys have some great young people that are really carrying the brand forward and care about your business and their business now the same as you guys did, and that's really that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Is to have
We
someone
do.
carry the torch. So
No,
congratulations
it's true, and
on that.
we've over time you look for those people, and we've been lucky enough and You know?
Well, you got to be that person before you can find them, right? And then all of a sudden, like attracts like, and they're like, "Wow, I really like," because they're committing to you and the firm, and you know all that kind of thing. So good for you.
Yeah, no, and Peter Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
When we were looking for new attorneys, I saw on his resume that he played baseball at Florida State.
Ooh.
And like right away, I said to Mark,
That's our guy.
"That's the
Yeah,
guy."
right.
And,
Who cares if he can be a good attorney? He can
right,
play baseball.
right. So that helped him. And then again, I being involved in sports and everything, I like the attitude. He's got a great attitude,
Yeah.
and he's another person who just, I think he was a natural.
That's great.
And our other one, Jim Gentile, plays
Yes.
soccer collegially. So
Better yet.
maybe
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
our qualification.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
all
go.
right, that's
Did you
what it
play
is.
Even though
sports?
I
Can
didn't
you
play
read?
a
Can you write?
collegiate
Forget
sport.
that. Can you play
I-
sports?
Right. Maybe that's our qualification.
Yeah.
I didn't really
Right.
think about that until you just said that.
Yeah.
Great.
Maybe that's a requirement
Yeah.
for us.
So from now on,
So play sports in college. That's the message we're going to send out.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you, Mike, Mark, Angelina, and Herrick.
Thank you.
Great guys. We've learned a lot, and we just know that our partnership has been great. We appreciate you guys, the business that we've been able to do together, and it's just a pleasure to refer people to you. And have the comfort of knowing that it's good, its job's going to be done right. They're going to be so happy. So thank you.
We
Thank
also
you.
thank you, and thank you for you've been fairly instrumental in some of the gains and things that we've done in our practice. So we appreciate
Well, it's only
your
because
help
we
as
trust
well.
you guys so much. So
So.
thank you. All right.
Thanks.
Signing off. Thank you.